What is going on, everyone? Anthony here, and welcome back to another episode of the Let's Talk Resident Evil podcast. And this episode is us celebrating the funding of Resurrection, a Biohazard Story, which is our next Resident Evil fan film following The Keeper's Diary. And let me just say a big old thank you to everybody who donated, everyone in the community. This last week has been a crazy turnaround. And it's funny because we originally were trying to do this show before the funding was over initially, or the campaign was over, I should say. And it was going to be, another push just to let people know about it. And it turns out we hit the goal before we jumped on this show, the day before, which is exactly what happened last time with The Keeper's Diary. So I thought that was a little funny. But you could still donate to the campaign. Even after tomorrow, as when you're seeing this, the campaign will technically be over, but you could still donate after the fact. So if you haven't grabbed any perks like the exclusive Blu-ray or a poster or a shirt or a signed, whatever, now's the time to do it as of this recording, because there will only be so much more left for us to supply for the campaign. But we're hitting even over our goal and getting into stretch goals, which is absolutely phenomenal. So I just want to say a big old thank you as being one of the producers as well as an assistant director on this project. This is a dream come true for a filmmaker, for a Resident Evil fan like myself. Coming off of The Keeper's Diary, we did something very, very special back there when we shot that a few years ago, and the reception was incredible. And I think that you guys saw that and knew that we were going to be able to fulfill on this promise of giving you guys a 4-part series. It is longer. It is about an hour long, but it reunites the original cast that you guys know and love. So this episode is us just kind of going over our reminiscing thoughts of Keeper's Diary, kind of our mindset throughout this campaign process, and going forward with how we're going to handle this project when we shoot in the last 2 weeks of August out in Utah. So it's going to be a amazing time to be a Resident Evil fan going into the 30th year of Resident Evil. You have Resident Evil 9. You have Resurrection, a Biohazard Story from fans, from the heart. And, if you are excited for Zach Krager's film, that's going to be later in the fall next year. So a lot of stuff coming up. But regardless, I just want to reflect before we jump in here on this month of June. That has been incredible, to say the least, for me. It was just reflecting on this whole month of not only being able to go to the UK and to see one of my brothers, Nuji, and he's like a brother from another mother at this point. So I want to just say thank you to Nuji, to Amy, to Izzy, to Nathan, to Jordan, and everybody in between, everybody at the meetup, everybody that said hello, everybody that hung out with us. It was one of the best streams I've ever done, being on the Resident Evil Challenge 2025 20th anniversary. I was able to finish my challenge in about 17 hours, which is insane. But not only that, I was just able to spend it with just amazing people and to be there in a room on a challenge where, again, I grew up watching, the challenges, you know what I mean? Sorry if that makes anybody feel old. But for me, it really was a dream come true. So the fact that all of that happened, on top of that, Resident Evil 9 was announced literally the night before. So I also want to extend a thank you to John and Dustin as well for holding things down while I was away. The timing couldn't have been any better with just the storm of Resident Evil happening. And so, I just want to say that trip and, just the whole experience for me and Callie both, because she was with me, was just incredible. And we really wouldn't change a damn thing with how we mapped everything out. And again, thank you to Nuji and Amy for having us and showing us amazing spots in the UK that we haven't seen before. And it was just very refreshing. You know, you ever, like, you come back from a trip, you might be, you know, a little tired, a little jet lagged, right? But you also just feel refreshed, you feel fulfilled because you had a sense of, you know, exploring and seeing different things. It's kind of like a nice little mindful reset, going back to the grind of, you know, work and getting right into something like this busyness storm of Resident Evil 9. It's a good problem to have. You know, it's time to grow the channel, you know what I mean? It's time to, you know, take the next step and see what I can improve as well. And, you know, getting John and Dustin a little bit more involved throughout this Resident Evil 9, you know, era, this next phase. So a lot of you guys have been enjoying that. And I appreciate all the feedback, you know, and, you know, we are going to have, you know, just a really good year. Well, less than a year, rather, but yes, a whole year in total, yeah, because the era is going to kind of extend over February a little bit when it comes out. But regardless, I think for all of us Resident Evil content creators, this is a special time. And again, just this UK trip with the challenge was one of my favorite streams ever. You know, like, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, you know. It was just incredible. And it's always over so quickly. You know, like that trip just kept zipping by, you know. Yeah, I just want to say thank you again to the whole RE Challenger team and family and fans that I was able to meet. And yeah, I just think that we're in a great spot right now to, you know, talk about Resident Evil 9 coming off of, you know, the announcement and the build up and the hype, and, you know, who knows when we're going to get a demo, maybe in the fall, all that good stuff. So a lot of great content will be coming out of this great live stream. So thank you for bearing with me as I get back into the swing of things into July with like live streaming and stuff like that. I promise that is coming on a more consistent, more schedule based, for the time slots and everything like that. So, but yes, so again, much love to all of you over there in the UK. Thank you for being like family, and really can't thank you guys enough. So this episode is another special one, just kind of reminiscing about Keeper's Diary, you know, our feelings going into this crowdfunding and stuff like that. So on this episode, I have Andrew Saullo, the director and the producer, Beggy, the writer and the producer, Andy, one of the producers, as well as the crowdfunding management. He did all the crowdfunding page and everything, the layout. And then the fourth person is Charlie Kraslavsky, the original Chris Redfield from the live-action Resident Evil cutscenes in the first game, as well as the Keeper in the Keeper's Diary. But now he is returning as Chris Redfield for the first time in nearly 30 years. This cast is being reunited. So it's a very special moment for this short film. And thank you all for coming on the show and shooting the shit and just having a good time. This is a great discussion. This is one of those discussions that, like, you know, like you could just sit back and just listen to everybody kind of give their input. It's very inspiring, and it's very, it just gets the creative, you know, stuff flowing, so to speak, just getting inspired and staying positive through this whole thing. So yeah, guys, so let's get into the episode without further ado. And again, stay tuned for more stuff after this podcast episode, because we have a lot more content right here on LTRE. So let's get into the show.
This is S.T.A.R.S officer Rebecca Chambers, and you're listening to Let's Talk Resident Evil podcast.
What is going on, everyone? Anthony back here with another episode of the Let's Talk Resident Evil podcast, and this is a tremendous occasion. Post everything with the Resurrection crowdfunding, I'm here with Andrew, Andy, Charlie, and Beggy, and thank you guys for joining on this amazing occasion that I didn't know we were going to be sitting here talking about us getting the film is funded. We got it.
Unbelievable
We
work.
are here. Unbelievable work, guys. This is incredible.
Yeah. Charlie and I were just talking before this that we were like, did this happen last time where we were going to do your podcast and then it just hit the day before?
Yeah. Yep. Literally the same thing happened. And yeah, I just thought, the timing is impeccable. But yeah,
I'm taking you to Vegas with me, Anthony.
Yeah, yeah. We'll do it. We'll do it. Yeah.
What's next week's lottery numbers?
Yeah,
yeah, we'll hit it big.
Read the numbers. Yeah, I mean, how are you guys feeling after this, 2-month long campaign? I mean, this was, an extra month longer because obviously we needed, more funding here. But how are you guys feeling now that the dust has settled, so to speak?
Yeah.
Anybody that wants to jump in?
Relieved.
It was mad stressful. It was very, very mad stressful. We got down to the last week. Beggy, what was the figure on? I don't know when everybody's going to watch this, but we crossed the boundary on Friday. So what figure was we on Monday, Beggy?
Yeah, so some good statistics to really paint the picture. First of all, on Monday, June 23rd, the very morning, we were at 127,000. And on Monday, the 16th morning, Friday, the 13th morning, we were at 76,000. So from the 13th, 76,000 to the 23rd, 127,000, and then on the 28th at like 4 a.m. on the road stream, we hit just over 200K. So really, it was like the final 2.5 weeks. We saw more than 125K come in, which is absolutely like just astonishing. It's incredible.
You guys were still streaming at 4 a.m.?
Yes,
Yeah.
we were live for the moment that it hit over.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Dude,
I was posting an update at the time,
Yeah.
like just saying, we're at 97%. Thank you, everybody. Let's push to the goal. And I didn't realize that the guys were still live at that point, at like 8 a.m. UK.
Just trying to drive it forward as far as we could.
It was a big
effort.
effort.
Yeah,
That's
I'll be
crazy.
honest. Like I didn't I saw the chat, and then I was literally almost like up like pacing for like 2 hours of just like realization of just like holy shit, this is happening, and then the excitement. I couldn't sleep. I'll be honest, in a good way. Like I was just like so like it just kind of hits you. And I feel like I'm still in that kind of like, holy shit, we're doing this. And I feel like the same thing happened with Keeper's Diary, where I was like, holy shit, we're doing it. Like it's still just kind of crazy. Cause like, yeah, you put all this, all this time and effort into it. And then when you finally see the fans really spoke up and they actually, they backed it and they really were with us all the way through. I mean, everybody listening and watching, just thank you. I mean, we really can't thank all
thank
the fans.
you. I was obsessively checking it like for the last 2 months, like literally probably like every couple of minutes, like just obsessively checking it. So I am relieved, to say the least, like that I don't have to do that anymore. I'm still checking it because like it's still open. And we have these stretch goals and people can still buy the perks, so it's still going up. I think probably at this point some people get confused and think it's too late, but no, it's not. Like if you want to buy a poster, you want to buy a Blu-ray, it's still available. So
yeah, I mean, I would say that we are so much better prepared. Like if you didn't know the inner workings, if the first time you've kind of seen Resurrection introduced today, like me and Andrew and I, we crowdfunded the Keeper's Diary, and we are just so much better prepared this time. Like we ran a very well campaign then, but there's still so much we needed to learn and kind of learn on the job. Painful lessons learning on the job as well. We are so much better prepared. Yes, the scope is 4 times bigger, but I don't necessarily feel the pressure like I did on Keeper's Diary, because I knew that it's not like we're playing with our own money. Like we are playing with contributors' money, people who really believed in our vision so much they parted with their own hard-earned cash. That really meant a lot to me. But I don't feel that level. It's going to be tough, I'm sure, but I just don't feel that level of pressure, because we've already been through it. It's the same methodology, but we have just been so much smarter with how we have allocated funds that I don't think we are going to run into the same types of issue. We're going to have new problems to solve on the job, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we are just so much better prepared for it. And once again, we really don't know where the limit is in the space for how much you can raise, because we thought it was 50 grand. We kind of said, okay, we had honest conversations internally. What do we think we're going to need to raise to make resurrection a reality? Not just any resurrection, but your vision of resurrection. And that number was 199. It's an extremely high number. Not a number we wanted to see, but
you got to say
we
it
want to
like my
deliver in
friend.
full.
You got to say it like my friend. 199.
199.
99. But yeah, it's a colossal figure that we didn't when we was initially, when we were initially talking about it, we was talking at like, oh yeah, 70, 80, 100. So we all set our spreadsheets up and then just saw the number climb and climb. And I was like, yeah, okay, we're happy with 150. Okay, no, there's more needs to be added. Okay, right. This is what we need to do. And we can sit here and say, oh yeah, let's set it at 100 grand and let's see what we can make. That's the wrong methodology to apply for this. Like, we know we can deliver Andrew and Beggy's vision for that figure. We have reached that figure now, and we are now delivering that vision. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah. We're here.
It was I think it was a lot of me and Beggy budgeting for the most part, but like I would just I had the story, Beggy wrote that story, and she put her own story into that story, and it's mostly it's turned into her thing. But as I'm budgeting, I'm like, all right, what do we need for this? What do we need for this? So that's the way I budgeted it, was try to come up with the lowest number possible, with how massive this story is. And I know that this is a very high number for a crowdfunded project that's independent and not official. But I just had a feeling that we could do it. It was kind of nerve-wracking just seeing it trickle up at first, but I don't know. I just had a feeling if it was in that 150 to 200 range, it wasn't out of the realm of possibility to me. So that's what I don't know
what the percentage is, but the percentage of successful films above 150k. Me and Beggy and I were talking about it the other day, and it was this is a super low figure. Bearing in mind, this is a fan film as well.
And we didn't have a trailer.
Yes. Another fantastic point. We've crowdfunded a film without showing a single trailer of what it's going. Yes, we have an animatic, and we have a demonstrated history of delivering successful crowdfunded projects and successful crowdfunded Resident Evil projects. But we are literally going off word of mouth and really people putting their ultimate faith in us to get this over the line.
I think,
but again, not concerned about it. Not concerned about it at all.
Yeah.
It does also help that we had a very well shot presentation video of what the project is going to be with all of the OG cast. And we had everyone say their piece, and there was a sense of unity in we're all in this together and we are going to create something large and ambitious, and can you help us do it? So I think that in lieu of having a narrative trailer, this actually worked quite well. I did read a lot about how many folks who stumble upon an Indiegogo campaign or a Kickstarter campaign, actually the decision of whether to contribute or not and how much is made within a matter of minutes, sometimes 30 seconds. What that means is that if you have a 16, 17 minute crowdfunding video the way that we did, most people will not see the whole thing. They will not sit through it. And that is okay, because a lot of enthusiasts in this community will be specifically interested in the part of each and every individual, and they will watch more. And those enthusiasts are a huge part of why we succeeded. Those are the ones that, before there is any sense of true urgency, before the final couple weeks or even days of the campaign, they feel an urgency already because they see specific items that are rare enough that they want now. And they see that money is going towards a project that is extremely rare and special and historic. And they buy into that vision before anyone else. And they keep the beginning and the middle going, while others are kind of looking on, seeing, hey, is this possible? Hey, should I join this collective effort, or is it too hard this time? And we needed the enthusiasts, the specialists, who are big collectors in this community, people who are just really passionately invested, to essentially give their contributions in the beginning and the very, very long middle, because the 60-day campaign has the longest middle, very, very long middle, and they carried it through there. You know, just some names: Dominic, Tony, we had Adrian, we had Kirsten, folks like those. They placed 9, 10, 11, 12 contributions, and every new perk they grab them, and it's like folks like that, because they're that invested and because they want every new perk.
Yeah.
They make this survive to the end, because at the end we have more casual onlookers saying, "Oh, this is really cool. I didn't hear about this before. Now it looks like we're going to win. I'll help it win." So
The perks that either you or me or Andy or whoever came up
Uh-huh.
with, like the ideas for, and we just kept adding them, I think really helped too.
Yes, the constant
So-
idea generation, because we know that, again, like those enthusiasts, they're so dedicated to this that they will pick up like every new one, and we're so grateful to that, because it's like, hey, that means that with this idea generation, if we have like reliable ideas, that if we present them in a way that people might want, we could progress the campaign, at least all that we can, even during the slower periods, and that'll make it survive the middle. So
The name the character one was yours, right? That was your idea.
yeah,
See, like between
I
that and the backer to backer, I would have never thought of that. But like for me, I'm like, what about sunglasses? You know what I mean? So it's like
it was
People
just,
love that one, yeah.
it's the like we have this saying in the UK, you know, you throw shit at a wall and see what sticks, and
yeah,
man, people are really enjoying it. I think the big one for me though, in terms of perks, it was actually fucking Brandon Salisbury, just talking with him for extended period of time, way before Resurrections. He says one big misstep from the Keeper's Diary was not having a physical
the
copy of
Blu-ray.
it.
Yeah.
We wanted to stay away from it for obvious reasons. We was already treading a very thin line with Capcom anyway.
Yeah.
And we just thought, do you know what? Let's offer it. And it was actually a viewer. I think it was Ronan.
Rowan, he suggested the
Yes.
idea, and we're like, "Hey, can we do this?" He sent us an email, and he's like,
Yeah,
"We could do this."
sent
and
us
if
an
you
email,
put
but
this diary on it, yeah,
basically saying, why don't you include the Keeper's Diary on the disc? So we obviously chatted with the supplier. Because again, what we don't want to do is get ahead of ourselves and lose part of the vision, which is we really want to get Resurrection on a physical copy to send to everyone. Obviously, Beggy liaised with the supplier, and they said, yeah, you can fit this amount of minutes or storage or whatever. So we were like, oh, actually, why don't we, as a little bit of a sweetener, for the first time ever, Keeper's Diary is going to be available in physical media, and it's going to be on the disc with Resurrection. So kind of donate to the project and you get a 2-for-1. I think having physical media was just such a game changer. And actually, look, I mean, how many people subscribe to that perk? Over
almost
300.
400.
There's 401 people that have claimed
Oh,
it.
over 400. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Like
that's
Resident Evil
a
fans,
huge amount.
they just like having collectibles. They like the physical product, and I think, yeah, that was just such a great addition to everything. And like you said, like with Keeper's Diary, it was like, okay, we're just trying to see what we can do and what we can get away with. So it's cool that it all led to this point, to getting those, you know, perks out there for people that were, like Beggy said, just literally grabbing everything because they really wanted to see this creative vision come to light without any compromises, the way it was intended. And I think that's a huge thing, because how many people in these, like, you know, studio driven places where they have a vision and then something happens or people get in and there's that meddling and it messes with the vision, you know? And so I think, like you said, this is like a huge thing of like, it had to be that amount, and it had to be, you know, something that where it wouldn't compromise that. And yeah, I just think that, you know, and I'm sure everyone can agree, I think just having that product of Keeper's Diary out there was also just a huge, like, trusting thing for people to, like, be reassured that, like, we will deliver something. We are trying to aim higher. People that wanted, obviously, you know, Keeper's Diary even longer, you know, now you're getting something even longer, you know, like certain things. I feel like just having that out there was just such a huge thing. And I think, I think it spoke with people. I think people resonated with that. They had that sense of nostalgia that connects them to the franchise, whether it's, you know, playing the game back in the day with a family member, with their parents, with their brother. Like it struck a chord, I think, within the community, especially because, you know, again, we've been kind of screwed over by the Hollywood efforts. My cat is rising up to the occasion. So I think that really, I think, solidified of like what can be done within the space. And obviously, like you said, with Keeper's Diary, there was some of that, like, well, we don't know, you know, what we can pull off with just that budget. And we were able to do what we did back there in Michigan. And so
Yeah.
In a frustratingly good way, we still don't know what the ceiling is.
Right.
Like,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like, is it
right?
500,000? Is it $1 million? You know,
I
at the end of the day, it has to be reasonable because, you know, all of us here, we are doing things. We are doing things as a gesture of goodwill, really, to get it over the line. You know, we're not doing it for profit, etc. So, kind of have to fund ourselves, like full-time work and that. So, there's only so much you can do. Like, we're not going to be running $2 million, $3 million, $4 million shoots.
No, we
But
might
I
in
think,
the future. You never know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll certainly see off the back of this, but there is just so many fundamentals that go into crowdfunding at this scale, like, because where you are dealing with, you're not dealing with your own capital. There are so many pros and cons. Like, the big one for us is having that creative vision that is completely unfettered, unhindered. What we are delivering, we haven't got any studios interfering, telling us we need to do it this way. Oh, we've seen this shoot, actually we don't like the ending, we need you to change it. So we're really fortunate in that aspect. But on the back end of that, we now have to deliver perks. We now have to
I'd way rather do that than listen to some jackwagon in a studio office.
Yeah,
I'll take that any day.
Who's not a filmmaker, who doesn't understand the ins and outs,
There's
but just
no
provides the
way,
capital.
no way you would get a project like this through the studio system. I mean, look at Zach Krager. He's making a movie about a mail courier that goes from point A to point B, as far as we know.
As far as we know, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, you know, huge shout out to Zach Krieger, by the way. Really talented director, but I'm very interested to see what he does with his Resident Evil film, because we're in a weird position, gang, where like we are not just like critics of Resident Evil films, like we're also going out of our way to put our vision of what we believe Resident Evil live action media looks like. And that's a very unique position to be in. It doesn't give us necessarily a position of authority on the matter, but it certainly gives us an interesting point of view, because we are invested. I mean, all of us have basically put our lives on hold creatively for 2 years to get this over the line.
Yeah.
So we are very invested in Resident Evil live action, and it'd be very interesting to see how that's received by the wider audience when it is dropped.
Yeah, speaking of creatively putting your life on hold for 2 years, every single time I try to start something else, I can't, because there's something more that I have to do for this project. Whether it's like with the logistics, whether it's producing, whether it's writing like another of like the 25 or 30 drafts, or it's like something else needs to be done, and I can't really dip my toes into something else because I know that there is unfinished work, right? And if it's an opportunity of this rarity and specialness, then it deserves all of that. You know, there is no like, I don't want the time back. I don't want anything. I just want to create it, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's, I was going to ask, like, for you, Beggy and Andrew, like the 2 years, like, did it feel even longer? Like how, like, you know, you're dealing with so much stuff, and obviously it's probably hard to even get sleep sometimes, because you're just thinking, wow, there's so much I have to do on top of your lives and your jobs and, you know, everything. So like, this process of like the pre-production stage, it's people that aren't in any kind of film might not know, but it's crazy, all the moving parts that go into it and everything that has to be just so this campaign could get launched, of just like everything getting past that line. So for you to, like, I mean, I'm sure there was definitely moments where you're just like, I don't know like how much more I can take of this, but at the same time, like you said, like you're also like, this is the vision, this is like what you guys are trying to get it to this point where you can present it and really sell this idea of this project. So either one of you can go first, but yeah, like I'm sure that was definitely a, the two, because of just so much more that went into this as opposed to Keeper's Diary, because that was on a smaller scale. But with this, it was like you also had to take all that knowledge that everybody learned collectively from Keeper's Diary. So how was that 2-year process for you guys? I mean, I'm sure it was a roller coaster of emotions, right? Like whether or not you can pull off certain things in the script or certain things that you didn't want to change, or how was that? Any one of you can take that first.
It was exactly how you described it, a roller coaster. It was I mean, I would work on it while I'm at work, and then when I would get home, I would work on it until I go to bed a lot of times. And then if I had some time off, I would try to just relax for a minute, but then I'd get right back into it, Beggy wrote 25 drafts of this. It started off at like 150, then it went down to 100, and then went down to 50. We had some people that were on the project at a certain point that dropped. And it's like you would get this much further ahead and then you would come this much further back, and it was just a constant, just like anything else, an uphill battle. But we're here, so
Yeah.
That's true. I was gonna say, it's just trying to successfully wear like a million hats, and that's like what Andrew did before. It's what Andy did too, and that's kind of like what I'm trying to do now. And it's trying to set everything logistically in order, and some of those pieces can take a single phone call, and then other ones can take months and months and months. I remember I'll come back to the script, but logistically, one of the things that I was talking about was earlier this year, there was a location that we were planning to use to build some of our sets. And
yeah, it's
after
fucking
an
bad, yeah.
interaction with the owner of that location, we were prevented from being able to use that location. And then there was a big rush to try to backfill that location. And I can't tell you how many phone calls and emails I made and sent out to try to backfill that location, because that type of location, just kind of empty space to build a film set, is really hard to find for like a month or like a month and a half. Everyone wants to rent out that space for like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And so it was like I don't know how many rejections before we finally got some help from a very nice lady from the Utah Film Commission. I was able to point us to a couple of contacts saying, oh, there's a couple of like newer buildings in this space, and they're specifically used for film and rented out for film. And thankfully, since we came across her, she was one of like, I don't know how many contacts we had to reach to get that location. We also were lucky enough to get this peculiar, kind of deal made of like, this is contingent on crowdfunding. And if we don't hit our goal, are we going to be able, we going to still have to pay the lease money? Are we still going to have to pay for this and commit to this deal to get this location that we need? And it's like, we even got that made, and it's like, it's amazing what is possible to secure a deal for a very specific scenario like this. Because it's like, yeah, like I said, other businesses will get it and they'll keep it and they'll stay there for years at a time, but we just need it for a couple weeks. And we need it a little bit before that to build the sets, right? So just specific situations like that, and trying to navigate what types of, kind of, I guess like human interactions are conducive to setting up everything that you want the way that you want it. Like we specifically need it in a very specific way. So, and we happen to get that. But yeah, and then going back to the writing and the conception of it, it was a process of also learning to write in a completely new medium, because I wasn't so accustomed to screenwriting, and screenplays are in their own very specific, almost archaic format. And so that was something to be learned. And as a writer, I try to be really descriptive and verbose, and you can't really do a lot of that with screenwriting. You have to be very frugal and concise, economical. So it was a big departure from learning to try to convey everything that I wanted to with just the words to, hey, describe generally what it is. Let everyone creatively do their part. Let the actors do their part. Let the directors fill in. Let the composer choose the music. You don't get to decide everything as a writer. And that's also like just something that you sort of understand. That film is like it's like a big melting pot. You're like trying to make like a big soup, and like you can't be the only cook, even if you're the only writer. Like it doesn't, you still don't get to have that complete control over the final product. It's very much like everyone gets a piece, and everyone's kind of essence is baked into one thing. And that was really hard, you know. And that was like, for me, I also like, I'm a stickler for specific details, and I want to make a big deal out of what others may see as little moments. And so like, in order for me to, over so many drafts, change it a million times, cut it like down like a whole bunch multiple times, like it's just really hard to part away with those details. But thankfully, you know, if I want to, I'm preserving a lot of those details in the novella perk. So like if you get the book form of it, you could see what it was without any details cut in like a book form. So there's always like kind of compromises and sacrifices that you have to make in order to make something practical from a filming standpoint. Because what we had before would have been way more expensive, and it would have had an even larger budget, and it would have required more days on set, more actors, probably more extras, and just a lot more in terms of variables and complexity. Because those early scripts, like my super idealistic visions, they were just trying to put a lot together. And it's like they were not like an average of 15 minutes per episode and like an hour total. It might have been like an hour and 20 or an hour 30. And that was just a little bit too long, a little bit much to pull off with the amount of variables and complexity we have already. So trying to very thoughtfully slim that down to something, into a size that we could make, that was like a whole process too. So it was a lot to learn and adapt, and I had to read a lot of books on screenwriting just to get a handle of like, what do people generally try to do with this that's so different from other mediums? Like, what are they trying to accomplish when they write a screenplay as opposed to when writing a book? And so there are a lot of good resources for that, and those helped a lot with like building out the characters, exploring where they are now, and reinventing their journeys in a way that is interesting and new. So, but yeah, that's just a little bit. I could talk about the pre-production cycle like all day, like every day, because it was just so long, and it's almost like a void. Like I feel like if I weren't doing this now, like continuing with this now that we've come to this point and past the goal threshold, I would just be really lost for a long time, because it's almost like all I knew for the past like 18 months to 2 years. So yeah.
I think the big takeaway that I've had so far, if I could sum it up with one word, to being a producer on this project, is compromise. Like compromising not just what Beggy has written to make it shootable, because we can dream about big explosions, this, that, Charlie jumping out of planes, elaborate CGI sequences. It all comes down to compromise. So if I could point out a few examples, obviously budgeting, Resurrection, Andrew and Beggy presenting their ideas and going, this is what we think we should do. We've not only got to shoot it, we've also got to crowdfund it, which adds just another layer of complexity to an already complex production. There was talk about Screen Actors Guild, which will then add another layer of complexity. We also had, so we initially, from the budgeting, it was, what figure do we need to settle on? You know, I'm always a very, very, I look at things very holistically, and I think we can never ask for more money. We never want to come back with our tail between our legs and go, sorry, guys, we ran out of funds due to our own incompetence. I never want to be in that position. So I'm very much like, we need to have a big contingency, because Murphy's Law, everything that could go wrong does. Whereas at the same time, we also need to not scare our backers and think, whoa, hang on a minute, you've got $300,000 or $250,000 as a starting point here. Why on earth should we trust you with $250,000? Appreciate your reputation's on the line, but that is a big value. And again, like even people at the moment are saying, 200,000 is a lot of money. We need to make sure that these guys are the right people to do the job. And obviously people believe that we did, which we're really thankful for. But even that final Indiegogo, me, Beggy, Andrew were just constantly arguing what that final figure should be. And I think we made the right choice. I mean, my thing was maybe go for 230 to absolutely make sure we've got enough fat, because we're also dealing with the world how it is now. You know, without getting into politics, there's so many moving parts in the world right now that could drastically affect our campaign. You know, what if the inflation rate in the US spikes? What if it becomes harder to ship internationally outside of the US? All of these things affect our production on a massive basis, and we never want to be in that position where we have to ask for more money. It's just it's not viable. It's really not viable. And the second biggest compromise, it's not a compromise, maybe compromise is a strong word, but tactfully approaching would be how we handle. We brought all of these iconic actors back except one, and that of course is Inez. We couldn't. For the longest time, we've been told that it's just not possible to bring back Inez. So how, as a production, when we're bringing back these original actors, and our USP is we are resurrecting these iconic actors. How do we not bring one back, and how do we tactfully replace Inez? And you know, we had reached out to everyone at that point. You know, Sasha, Julia Voth was. We was very. Go on.
I reached out to Sasha for Keeper's Diary.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah,
there was a bunch of others for this.
Yes, you know, we considered a lot of. I mean, we even had the possibility of approaching like Sienna Guillory, who did Apocalypse Jill. Like, how possible would that be? Obviously, she would command an absolutely fair and reasonable figure, I'm sure, to undertake the role. But you know, we was very far down the line negotiating with Julia Voth to bring
Beggy,
her back into Resurrection.
She got a hold of her, but she very lovely person. She's just got a family and young kids, and
she's a realtor now in California.
It's also a point that not all folks that, even if they engage with the community, do fan stuff, are pursuing the actor or actress career path. So if folks are like, if we're asking them to do an hour-long piece and they haven't really pursued acting, it doesn't make the most sense for them, right? And we can respect that. So
I think like Inez is the same. With Inez, it's more like just the privacy aspect of it, from what I understand. It's not the fact that she hasn't been found. It's just the idea of just some people just would rather not be in the spotlight. You know,
exactly.
That's what they wish. Then that's what. We're not going to force that.
But it's also delivering on that original selling point, which is we are bringing these original actors back. So it's like, okay, right now we're in this position where like we've got all of these fantastic, iconic actors, but no Jill Valentine, and we was getting quite close down to the mark. And I'd spoken with Andrew 18 months ago about, well, what about Annie Roig? Annie Roig has been in the community for a long, long time. And she had really always been my like first choice, Jill Valentine, and I always went to bat for Annie to do this. But I totally understand that, you know, if we could get a Julia Voth, that would be absolutely unbelievable. And even with extended conversation with Annie, she felt the same. But we did, for all intents and purposes, we have not settled with Annie Roig. Annie Roig is the absolute most tactful, best decision we can make for Jill Valentine, taking into consideration absolutely everything. And I'm very happy that she agreed to do it. We've extended conversations with Andrew and Beggy, and obviously she knows Charlie. She knows a lot of people in the community anyway. It was really a done deal the second we recommended it, really. So I'm happy we finally got that over the line.
I want to talk about that a little bit more too, because it's incredible. I think it's very serendipitous that we have Charlie, Linda, Greg, and Eric at all, and to be willing to do a film production at this magnitude. Like, I think that is so fortunate and unlikely. Like to absolutely like just run and gun for another, like, oh, if we don't have this, if we don't have it now, if we don't have that, it's all just, you know, it doesn't matter. Like, no, like we could tell incredible stories with who we have right here. Absolutely. And we can get Annie for a Jill, and we could do whatever we want, you know? It's like, don't lose yourself and beat yourself up over not having one OG. It's like we got 5, 6. We got Pablo, we got Joe, it's insane what's going on here. And I also want to talk about how high we aimed. Just how high we're aiming is because like we like with discussions with you, Andy, with Andrew, no one really settled for anyone. No one really settled anywhere with any of the casting choices. We all aimed really high and got whoever we could. And it's like it's whoever, like there are some folks on this cast list. Like of course we have the campaign page, the folks that you know that are going to be in it, but there are some folks that we've been talking to that are secondary characters, minor characters, that we have been in conversations for, and some of the candidates for Jill as well, that we had been in conversations with them or their agents for, I don't know, I can't tell you how many months we had been going back and forth, like months on end. Like, can we make this work? Can this person show up? Can you do that on this day? Like that kind of negotiation, that is a huge part of the process, the mental energy, the roller coaster. And it's just the higher that you aim, the longer those conversations can be sometimes, because it could be more and
There's
more
a lot
difficult.
of like middle management as well.
Yes.
That's what I found. There's a lot of people that want their finger in the pie, and it's like it's already ambitious enough. This is a big independent film for us, but sort of with SAG, you're just adding that level of scrutiny and layer of a bureaucracy that really a project to this size, like we don't want someone coming in and justifying their existence on our project, because it will slow us down in our tracks. We want to deliver on our vision, and we're very fortunate that not that it's anti-union or anything like that, but we're very fortunate that everybody that we've spoken to, that we've contracted in, has not had that just layer of agents and middle management that the message gets lost.
I'll just say that I'm not anti-union either, but I don't think SAG likes to play with indie small scale. No. There's just it's kind of one of the small reasons why the industry is the way it is now. It's just so there's so much red tape. If you want to get a permit to shoot in LA, you're paying over $1,000. It's just, I think I saw Drinker do a video about how absurd it was to work, because he worked with SAG actors, and he was like, yeah, if there's a puddle in the parking lot, you have to have scuba divers on standby. And it's like, well, what are we doing here?
Shit. And you're absolutely right in what you say. And I don't want to ever put across like an anti-union message. There is we don't want people being exploited on set or anything like that. But with what we're trying to achieve here, it's an independent production. You just don't need that level of everything's approached in good faith. You don't need that level of scrutiny, because it'll end up tripling our costs. And
I would have loved to work with union stuff, but they just don't like. Their rules and stuff are just, some of them are crazy. That's all it is. I mean, if you're part of the union,
if we had a $10 million budget, like, yeah, man, we'll get SAG on board. We'll even take their guidance and advice, and it'll probably make us better filmmakers. But at this level, where we're like, man, we're already dealing with other people's money. We've got the whole crowdfunding thing looming over the top of us.
Yeah.
Like you just, there was a lot of conversations with.
There was a provision SAG that would have not allowed you to do what you need to do in the UK. If we signed with the union.
That's also true.
It's like, why?
There were some of the agreements that were like, oh, maybe we can make this one work, and there's like a couple other that seem like they might fit. Our particular project was like out of line with like one or two of the sort of criteria, but we were in line for a lot of the other ones. But then there were certain ones where it's just like, you were not able to film anything outside of the US, for this particular level of agreement. And it's just like, if we have really crucial films to a full story here that we need some bits to be shot second unit or elsewhere, this is not going to work. We can't make this work with what we're trying to do. So it's really about like proceeding with what works best for us. And I feel like that's absolutely what we've done. And There's also one thing that I wanted to say about when Andy was saying, if we have this angle of we are resurrecting these classic actors and we are having them reinvent themselves in a creative new story, I think that's good, but I also don't think that it should be about the sort of like allure of certain people involved. It's kind of like at a certain point we need to. It shouldn't just be about let's see how many of them we can pack into one film. It should be
Agreed.
let's try to tell a really, really strong, compelling story, craft a really good narrative out of
Yeah.
the folks that we got here, because these are the
Yeah.
ones that we want to star. It's not like let's find every last one and shove them in. We don't really want to create something like Death Island, you know? We
Yeah.
want to create
Yes,
something
it's
where
just like the Avengers type film.
It's just
Yeah.
thinking that. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
we
Well,
don't want to cram in wherever we can, but if they seem like they would be
good fit.
appropriate for a part and they would aid the characters that are right at the center, then sure, maybe we could do something.
There was
Yeah.
just this. I remember it was like again. It
I'll be
was
right back.
just after Keeper's Diary, and I follow Annie on her Instagram, Cosplay Mum, and there was this post she did of Jill Valentine, and it was in black and white. She had like she had like a grey streak through her hair. She had like the RE3 get up, and I was like, man, like God, I'm just picturing this Jill in Resurrection, and I think it can really work. She's
Yeah.
super accessible. She obviously knows people in the communities, met Charlie before, sort of has that chemistry already. So it would be a very easy fit to make that work. And I don't think it's as, I know we don't want to like rely on the past necessarily, but it's not like we're sticking somebody in there who's completely like left field, doesn't really know. And that was a big thing actually as well. We could bring a very well-known actor in. Let's say we bring Sienna in, or there was a couple of other actors which were very, very high top tier actresses. And we're thinking, do we want to bring this person in who really doesn't have, I'm not saying they don't appreciate Jill Valentine, but they won't have that level of appreciation and knowledge of the law that somebody like Annie would. She would know what Jill's motivations would be and how she would convey herself. And that's what made Annie such an attractive person for Jill Valentine. And I'm so happy that she agreed to it, and all systems are go. I think she's going to absolutely kill it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, very well said, guys, because I think, just diving more, because people really will get an understanding from this episode of just like all the inner workings of it, and a lot of the, either whether you said compromises or just kind of like, sometimes butting heads with some ideas of like, no, we should do it this way. No, but sometimes you have those conversations where you kind of can meet in the middle, and you're like, okay, this is kind of the direction we're going to go in. And now for you, Charlie, I mean, now, because I haven't really got a chance to really talk to you post Keeper's Diary, really, but seeing obviously the response, and, obviously I've heard you on other shows and stuff like that talk about it, but, when we were doing that, did you have an idea of like, us kind of moving on to something on this scale, as far as, bringing, because I know you guys have done the reunion videos where you've gotten together in the studio and played the games and stuff, but as far as like where we're at now at this point with this project, is it kind of crazy that it's like this character of Chris Redfield is just with you now? Because now you're really coming back as Chris. It's not just the Keeper, right? So after Keeper's Diary, did you like see this kind of building, snowballing into something bigger? Like how is your mindset once we wrap Keeper's Diary and then you finally saw like the finished product? Like how was your kind of initial like going forward,
Yeah, I think I felt a sense of like I'm not sure what the word is, but I felt like it was regrettable that we couldn't have Eric and Greg. And we hadn't contacted Linda yet at that point. And I know like they were all really excited. Both of them were really excited about the Keeper's Diary project. I mean, there just wasn't room for all three of us in it. And yes, I saw that this would be the next step. Like even back then, like I knew that if we did a really good job on the Keeper's Diary, it would lead to not something like this, but this. I mean, this was, something that we kind of were spitballing that first time we all met up together in Utah, and we like at the last minute threw together that that teaser for Resurrection back then, which was totally just last minute improvised. And if you watch it now, I mean it you know it's obvious that it was just thrown together at the last minute. Still looks good. And I know that Greg just loves being part of this community. And he's, really been pushing, like we all have an agent now. Well, I shouldn't say all, but Greg and Eric and we all have an agent now for conventions.
Right, which you didn't
And,
have actually back during Keeper's Diary. I remember we're sitting around the bonfire after everything, and I was like, man, that'd be cool if you did conventions and stuff like that. And then you mentioned that like you didn't have an agent at the time, and here we are a few years later, and I see you doing all the shows, and like that's just amazing, man. It's incredible to see.
Thank you. Yeah. So Greg, I think, has really been pushing and wanting. Problem is he's all the way in Australia, which blows the cost out of the window. But he, I think, was the one that talked the Midwest Gaming Classic into having all three of us there.
Wow.
And I think he was also the one who contacted Portland. So he's really been pushing for that because he's just like, biting at the chomp to be part of things. And I know, he definitely wants to be in front of the camera as well. And Eric is very much like his character. He's kind of, very hard to read, kind of aloof. But I've seen like how he lights up, like, when he's got the Wesker costume on. And I know like he must be just like loving this. And I was like looking at the perks, and it's like, 7 of Eric's posters sold and only 3 of mine sold. And I'm like thinking he's looking at that, and he's like, ah. Yeah. And frankly, I'm sure the fans by now are like probably sick of seeing and hearing me anyway. I'm just like all over. And I think they're dying to see Greg and Eric and Linda. And I think this is the culmination. This is what it was always going to be. And The Keeper's Diary is a standalone, fantastic short film. And it paved the way for this. So, and it thanks to this man, we're all here because he's the one that brought us all together. And I wouldn't be doing conventions and having a larger group of followers on social media and an agent and like all these other cool things that have happened to me. It's all, because Andrew contacted us. So
I think it would have been inevitable, but you got the right person to do it.
I guess that's
the right catalyst. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hope that it just keeps snowballing. I've gotten to do some little like other acting, just little jobs as well. And I hope this just keeps snowballing. I'm not getting any younger, so I want to keep doing fun stuff like this, and maybe someday be able to quit my 9 to 5.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible just to see how much the community has come together and also just kind of made a lot of this stuff possible within that time. And just again, how dedicated I think the Resident Evil community is, on top of like your topic of like conventions and stuff too. Like, because I see it from the horror side, because I do a lot of horror conventions and work with celebrities and stuff, and I see that, and I just see how dedicated they are. And I feel like RE fans are just as dedicated, if not more, to just the franchise because, again, of like what it means to them. So I'm sure like seeing a lot of the interactions like at the table, I'm sure you're kind of like, Like it kind of, I'm sure it already hit you before then when you found out that this franchise has kind of transcended generations. But like, how has that been seeing it at like conventions, like just all the different walks of life that are coming up and getting their like, you know, their prize collection item signed by you? I'm sure that's pretty mind blowing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge kind of ego trip in the beginning, you know, because I just wasn't used to it. And yeah, you just like you see like people's faces light up, you know, and you hear their stories, you know, and so many like interesting uh, things, like you know, people telling you these stories about how the game changed their life, you know, and or like how they bonded with somebody because of it, and I hear those kind of stories like all the time. Um, and I kind of wondered about that game, you know, like people who are watching probably know, like I didn't know I was part of Resident Evil because of this weird set of circumstances. But you know, even before I kind of was brought back into this community and found out that I'm part of Resident Evil, I used to think back. I was like, yeah, I wonder if anyone plays that game. Like that was such a cool gig I did back then. And yeah, turns out like it really, really influenced a lot of people, and even today. So I feel very fortunate. You know, it's just one of those things. It's not about uh, your acting ability or who you know. It's like it's really just about being in the right place at the right time. I know it's kind of cliche; you hear it all the time, but
Mm.
that's what it kind of comes down to. And um, I was just a really, really fortunate guy. I mean, it's not like I didn't like work to get there. You know,
Mm.
I was working towards a goal, but um, you know, I guess just being there in Japan, like that gave me a leg up. Um, being part of that incredible culture where people are just so talented and so driven and so passionate about what they do, no matter what it is, not just artists. Um, and like just having that good fortune to be able to hitch, you know, my wagon. What is the phrase? Like ride the coattails
Mm.
of Shinji Mikami, you know, and to be part of something truly special. And so I think we all have a big kind of uh, responsibility to really honor that and really deliver. So pressure's on, folks.
Yeah, I mean, I would say as well, just to go on the back end of that is, I know you said about people are relying on that kind of nostalgia when they see you because it reminds them of the better time. And we were talking before we went live about that kind of pre 9/11 world
Yeah.
where everything kind of changed after that date. And the true beauty of Resurrection is the stars have aligned. Not only is everybody coming back, but you're coming back 30 years later. I think that like to the
The
fucking day, like
timing
yeah,
is
the timing
insane.
is absolutely unbelievable. And if people can watch this series and they'll see you and they'll see there's so many different layers of complexity here. Like you might have a fan who played a game, who played Resident Evil with their dad when they were a kid, and they haven't touched a single game since. And they're like, "Oh, I remember that. Oh yeah, Charlie's back. Chris Redfield." Like just seeing all of that, and then you might have the disenfranchised Resident Evil film community who are like, "Oh, I just want to see Resident Evil delivered on the big screen in a formula that I like." Because this is going to release just before the film that's going to come out next September. So you're going to have that community. Like what
So
I'm
much
trying to
going
say
on
is,
next year. It's crazy.
yeah, this is just like a perfect stars aligned moment to deliver a very special project. And we don't know what happens after this. This could be,
No.
we're looking at Keeper's Diary as a launch pad. What if Resurrection is an even bigger launch pad that just fucking launches us through the stratosphere, you know? This could
Yeah.
be a
Yeah, I
huge
think it's
opportunity.
inevitable. I think it's inevitable. Sorry, my words are not coming out. And that kind of like I can't think of a specific example, but that kind of serendipity feeling, I felt that all along. Like since
too.
starting. There's been so many things that just have like kept falling into place. It just feels, I'm not a religious person, but yeah, like it just feels like there's some kind of karma or higher power or so, like some kind of mystic, power behind it.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing because of just like what I was saying in our group chat when we were kind of like having doubts or I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, if it's meant to happen, it will. But it's just crazy how like you said, the timing of stuff is just, it's interesting how it works out, and it brings us all together. And like if we never popped in a Resident Evil disc when we were a certain age, we wouldn't be here right now. It's like or participated in the project itself, So it's like it's almost just like. Yeah, it is very wild, and I think it's amazing now with obviously the internet, with our communication with the community, of how you can get the word out and you can get people excited. And I think that's why I think the timing 30 years later doing all of this is like, it's happening right now because we're just at this moment where the franchise is hitting this milestone. You do have another like actual Hollywood live action coming out, like you guys were saying as well, but it's like now we're just kind of like the little guys still that are coming up and trying to say, listen, we're trying to present something that, is really coming from the heart. And we are going to put, again, just like before, blood, sweat, and tears into this as well. So I think that promise that we delivered before, I think that's just going forward with, everything that we're promising with this one. We're really going to try to, give our 150% for this, if not more, of just like everything that we got. And I think because we know that this moment is very special. So I think all of us on set, once we start rolling, that's going to be, even when we have, hard moments, and I'm sure there will be some, like, it's just, we have to remind ourselves of just like, we're doing this together as a team. And if like, it is kind of crazy how it all does rely, I think Andy was saying this earlier, like how it literally does rely on like everybody bringing like their, just to keep the spirits up, keep the strength up through that production, because there's so many moving parts. And it's like, it's not just about, one set role. It's like all of us together as a unit. And I think for me personally, with Keeper's Diary being like that scale of production that I've never been a part of, even being a filmmaker, it's always been a lot smaller than that. So I just learned so much from that experience, and I'm just so grateful that we did what we did and we went through what we went through, the good, the bad, and in between, but all of it was positive at the end. That output was just like incredible. So yeah, I'm definitely forever grateful for all of you in this podcast right now, everybody on the cast and crew, and everybody that has got us to this point, because really, and again, the community just has been the backbone of this whole thing. So it's really hard to pick franchises that are still going on 30 years later, let alone fans that are that are like literally backing something that they really want to see happen.
I think in an ideal world, if like we funded it now, it's going to happen. When we get into post, I wasn't going to tell the guys about this, but I really want to reach out to Capcom directly and just be like, I know we've got like a deal with Row and everything like that, and it's going to go up on Resident Evil regardless.
Right.
But to celebrate the 30th anniversary, I would really like it to go on the Resident Evil YouTube page, the official Resident Evil YouTube.
Bro.
I know they don't.
I'm on your side, but I just don't.
But think about the pitch is we have a finished film that's not for profit. Or a finished series.
Yeah.
How amazing would it be if they put it on their YouTube channel? We don't know anything.
Yeah,
I think that would be a very.
I don't know the way Capcom works that well, but is there some other project that got that kind of a spotlight before? Like, I don't know, like what's this Capcom creators thing about? Do they get to have some of their things highlighted on Capcom's platform, or?
That's different.
Unfortunately not. That's more of like
it's mainly socials.
It's mostly social, and just like for the Capcom creators has just been kind of like a way where like you could get maybe free codes of games to cover and review and stuff like that. Unfortunately, they've never like gave anybody a platform like that to be, and they've never really like taken a fan series and saying, hey, check this out. They've never really done that, unfortunately.
Counterpoint though, this isn't just a bunch of and I'm not like being flippant and being rude, but this isn't just a bunch of cosplayers running around a field. Like this is an actual like production. I don't think they've, as much as they've never aired something like that on their channel, they've never had the opportunity to air something like this
That's
on
fair.
their channel. So
Yeah.
it at the end of the day, it's going to go up on the Residents of Evil free of charge. But to get that official, like, there might be a lot of red tape, and Constantine might be like, well, hang on a minute, we don't really feel comfortable you putting a 30th anniversary series on your page when we've got film coming out in 6 months.
Which, what are the chances of that too, right? Because we didn't know when we were going to be like setting up the pre-production stuff that like this film was going to have a set date for September of the Hollywood film anyway. Yeah. So like again, the chances of that are just really insane.
But this isn't like us. I want to make it clear, because I am not. I've been a salesman all my life. This isn't. I truly believe a horrific sales technique is denigrating a competitor to get your own product over. I've never been a big believer in that. You should always rely on the positives of your own product. We are not WCW and WWF. We are not counter programming the official Resident Evil film. We are putting our own project out that's a celebration of 30 years of Resident Evil. Yes, there may be some crossover where we think we're not a fan of that and we believe we can do better. I'm sure a little bit of ego plays into that, but it's not like the selling point of Resurrection. Like, we have a very unique, compelling story that we want to tell in the Resident Evil space based on the Resident Evil characters. We're not counter programming. We're not. You could argue we're trying to fill that kind of live action void, but that's not the main selling point.
No, it's really just like we have in the story on the campaign. The Keeper's Diary has evidenced the high demand for this type of unofficial fan content. So if we have the opportunity, and I'm given the opportunity to play around in an unofficial version of that mythos, that world, then I would love to. And that's why we did. It's a story that I want people to be able to take as canon if they would like, and it picks up off of the events of late Resident Evil Village, but then it kind of brings it back to fundamentals, and it actually introduces new elements, a new bioagent, a new town, in a way that actually is devised to test these characters in a later stage when they're very mature, when they're dealing with circumstances that they haven't seen before. What do they need now? If Chris is disillusioned with his own unit and he sees an organization that he put so much effort to build up crumble down to pieces because they don't stand for what they say they stand for, how is he going to feel? How does that, what does that look like? And if we don't get an official follow-up from that plot thread, if we were able to do it in some fan capacity, why would I not do that? It's like a golden lottery ticket. It's just a chance of like, hey, can you express what you're thinking in terms of this character's point of view or Jill's point of view? Could we pick up off of those and create something inspired by those events and create like an unofficial version of what I would like to see next? Like, if you gave me just the opportunity to create that in a narrative format, what would come out? Like, I would really like to see. And now, hopefully, we'll get to create the fullest version of that we possibly can. So.
Yeah, and that's the big difference of like, fans actually creating something, because when you're sitting there writing, you're almost like thinking, okay, this is like what I know I would want, but also what the fans would want to see, like where these characters are. Because Capcom sometimes between games, they kind of forget, or they choose to forget certain things that connect, or they're jumping around years and timelines and stuff between every sequel. So I think having something that is a little bit more like a continuation and honoring all of this stuff post 8, for example, like in the timeline, like I think that's a great thing, because a lot of fans have a lot of questions that may not even get answered in Requiem, RE9. Right. So
I also believe that, part of the reason, probably the single biggest reason for what you're saying with jumping around with timelines, jumping around with plot threads, you don't necessarily see immediate follow-ups to plot threads. You kind of see something picked up from many years later. This Ashcroft thing, we haven't heard of it since Outbreak.
No.
How many
exactly.
years? Like, so it's jumping all around. But the biggest reason is almost every single entry, maybe every single entry, in terms of combination, has a different writer or a different combination of writers. The same folks are not devising the scenario every time, and they value different things, and I value something different. And many other fans will value other different things as well. We have all sorts of different eras of fans in this space for this franchise. And some of them maybe are purists, they're traditionalists, and they like the original trilogy the best. Some of them are maybe partial to the Bioterror arc in like RE4, 5, and 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the later entries. So we want to create something that fuses together aspects of maybe the middle and late with the beginning. And we have something that can be seen as like the bookend to Resident Evil if you wanted it to be. It could be seen as a passing of the torch. All of our heroes are getting a little bit older. What message do they have to the next generation in this godforsaken world at this point, fighting bioterror? That's what you'll get to see. What kind of message would Chris have for his organization that he's started to devalue? But it's like
It's all you damn millennials and Gen Zers. Your fault.
We caused the damage.
on top of that as well, it's not. I know I said we're not comparing, but hypothetically, let's compare. What we don't want to do is get into this weird circle jerk of fan service. Like, there's towing the line between delivering something that's very lore accurate versus just doing mind-numbing fan service. And I think one of the big holdups that we had with Welcome to Raccoon City, for example, is obviously we were very happy to see these elaborate sets and very lore accurate elaborate sets on the big screen. It was very satisfying to see. But then they did stuff like this, the Itchy Tasty window, and it's like, but we know what Itchy Tasty is. Like, it's not just a random thing that somebody says. Like, it's there's a whole document behind it which details why he says Itchy Tasty. It's just the malformation of the human into the undead.
Yep.
And that's why, like, what we're doing here and going through the script with Beggy and going through the animatics that they've put together to get that high level executive look at what their vision is, you think, Jesus fucking Christ, like, I can, this is not just mind-numbing fan service. This is somebody telling a team telling a very compelling story in the Resident Evil space that is geared towards what we want to see.
Yeah, you know, and there are fans of all of those three eras that I mentioned, of the traditional trilogy, of the Bioterror arc, and the 7, 8, 9. There are fans from all of those eras that will appreciate different aspects of this. And we are actively, creatively re-exploring elements that we've seen in entries prior. There are aspects of it taken from 5. There are aspects taken from 1. There are aspects taken from many of the titles that are now creatively either re-explored, kind of referenced, or given new context. They've been recontextualized. You know, what is Jill dealing with after the events of RA5? How has that changed her circuitry, her brain? How has that changed her day-to-day life? And what does she need right now? What kind of scenario would be best devised to like test her and really see what's going on? And with Chris, you know, dealing with the BSA, dealing with corruption in the ranks, where do we go from there? What does that character need? It's like, how do we kind of take the pieces that we have in all of these different eras and creatively combine them in a way that naturally just gives us the next step of what these characters should be doing right now? So
I will say that it is not good to use Leon for horror because he doesn't get scared of buckets.
He doesn't get scared of buckets or anything else. Yeah, that is pissing off the community as we speak, actually.
Yeah.
that was a good point.
I just think that, like, it's definitely you know he's going to show up in the game.
Yes,
you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like he is.
They wouldn't say it. They would not bring his... It's almost like saying Ark Thompson is not going to be in Resident Evil 9.
Yeah, it's like, why would you say
I
that?
can't believe that if they said that.
Yeah, like, it's just such a random... Like, yes,
remember.
you could say they were trying to address the speculation that insiders have already revealed that Leon's in the game, but, like, Capcom have never played into this trope before, so they're just doing it as a ruse. He's obviously not going to be the main character, but...
Right.
Man, I just think that Requiem, the very definition of Requiem is like coming to an end. Mm-hmm. And no way they go back to Raccoon City without an iconic character. And I don't think, yes, obviously Chris, Claire, Barry have ties to Raccoon City, but
Yeah.
they don't have this unique story that Leon has. This young knight who they didn't go through that developmental change, the character change like Leon did. His first day on the job being this naive cop who just goes after the first Asian woman he finds.
Yes.
And
That is his waifu.
and has absolutely it's plagued him for his entire existence.
Yeah.
I guarantee Ada if Leon's in it, no doubt Ada will show up.
That's
Or maybe
what
that's
I'm
that's
thinking,
the reason he
right?
goes back. Maybe
Yeah.
they go, we've heard that there's been a sighting of an Asian woman, and he's like, oh, get me there.
He's like, well,
now.
fly me
Get
right there,
yesterday.
first class ticket right now.
God.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing is like how do they tie all that up? I don't know. I think they're trying to make this like a passing of the torch type of game, and that would be interesting even if they were big balls, and they probably won't. But if they actually try to kill off Leon, where his first day on the job was, and that's where he ends up dying. Imagine how crazy that would be. That'd be big balls, but I don't think they're going to do it. But I think he will be in it. Just not as a main character. And that's the thing, right? It's almost like every time there's a new RE game, there's always something that divides the fans, but everybody still plays it anyway. It's like, damn it, you know what I mean? It's like you always want to.
I've never understood the concept of let's make something to divide people. Like, why? That just sounds like a horrible idea.
Oh, it's never
Right.
the intention. It's like
No,
the
no.
byproduct. It's a byproduct of like another
Sometimes it
vision.
is.
Another writer has like another angle and they want to explore that, and
That's-
so
that's the
it creates
thing.
something new. Yeah.
Sometimes it is, though. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it is.
Yeah, but it's that whole dichotomy of, you put on Twitter, I love pancakes, and then someone comments saying, what, does that mean you hate bananas? Like,
I don't
But
think it's the
sometimes it's just-
dominant intention, and I think maybe it's like one of the second or third order effects, but I don't think it's like someone comes out just to be bombastic and divisive and
I don't know.
divide the fan base.
I just feel like, from my approach, if I'm making something, I kind of want to honor what that is. I don't want to say, no, I can do this different. That's the stories that I don't like, is when you have a filmmaker, a game maker, a writer, whatever, and they take over a property
like an
and
existing media.
it's just totally different than
Well,
what we have come to know and love. And then you have it's like, then you have these people and you have these people, and there's like no middle ground. It's like, don't do that.
It's about
Yeah,
striking
yes
a
and no.
balance. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you
yes
like
and no,
the
but
source material, just honor it. That's my view.
agreed. Yes and no, but let's look at Resident Evil. If we were, again, I've tried to get away from comparing to the Resident Evil live action that we have already, but something that I've picked up on Keeper's Diary, and I've gained a new appreciation for Paul W.S. Anderson, for example, is we need to appreciate as content creators in the Resident Evil space that survival horror is a niche in a niche. So that means that it doesn't have an overwhelming following
Yeah,
that someone like the next Avengers film would have. So
sure.
what you're trying to do, especially from a studio point of view, I can sympathize. This is only an opinion, is that they are trying to make Resident Evil appeal to a more casual audience, which is why you get some of these absolutely loopy byproducts like Alice and some of the weird and unique things they've done in the films and even the series, is they're trying to make that concept appeal to a casual audience. Now, the reason why we love Resident Evil is because it's Resident Evil. It's not because it's anything else, but it's trying to make that marketable to a wider audience. And that's going to be the ultimate dilemma that any studio is going to face, is how do you make a very niche idea appeal to everyone?
That's why they're all failing.
Yeah,
Well, that's the thing,
but it's failing. It's not commercially. Resident Evil is actually one of the top performing IPs that have been adapted from a game. Actually, probably the prime example.
Yeah, but they've had like 20 years to do it. Sonic the Hedgehog did it in a year. So did Mario.
Yeah, that's true.
I just don't.
But
I
that's
don't
the
fall
other
into
side
that
of the
trope.
argument. That's the other side of the argument, where actually you can produce a more authentic, compelling story that's more lore accurate and still maintain. And that's where I agree with you, Andrew, that they are doing it wrong, where they're almost doing it arse about face, by trying to make the casuals to try to make Resident Evil appeal to the casuals. Well, actually, what they will need to do is make the casuals love Resident Evil. That's what they need to do.
Look at Halo.
That's why it's harder. Yeah, because there it's like what you guys are talking about, what Andrew's talking about, like about divisive media. Like it's always about striking a balance between novelty and tradition, like novelty and familiarity. So like not everything should be honoring, not everything should be an homage, because then nothing new is there to be explored and enjoyed. So it's like if you
still do new stuff.
Yeah, that's why
that's
why
what
characters
I'm
like
saying.
Grace Ashcroft exist and Ethan Winters exist, because again, you can't always rely on these older characters who have already gone through that matured change from being naive pop.
That doesn't even have to be the element of novelty, though. It's just like that's one way of looking at it. But what I was getting at is that the thing that makes a new Resident Evil game or movie novel doesn't have to be something like the main character. It doesn't have to be like, it could be a new bio agent. It could be just the angle of storytelling. It could be any of those things. But that's why it's like a balance, and often we see extremes of the balance. We don't see, so one extreme is we take something exactly how it is in the game and we just port it over to a movie format and that's it. It's just like exactly what Resident Evil 2 would be. Let's take RE2 and it's scenes of Leon making his way through an RPD and discovering Ben Bertolucci, fighting Birkin at the end. So, and some people want that. Some people don't want,
they want it
really any.
They don't want creative
deviation.
liberties. Yeah,
they don't want creative liberty. They don't want novelty. And then some folks want to really play with something new, and they go in a really completely different direction. Something
That's
like
what
the
I don't
Netflix
like.
series, something like, I know that's what you don't like. So it's like the balance between those two is, that's why like. And I don't want this to be too harsh of a criticism because I think they do a good job, but there's a lot of indie devs who try to create survival horror entries that almost like pay a little too much homage to Resident Evil. And it's just like, I don't even know why in some of the cases, why or where or how it deviated in a way to distinguish itself. Because it's like, am I just playing a reskin of what I know? Or is there something novel to be explored here and played with? And I think that, so a game like, I think Daymare 1994 has done a really good job of distinguishing itself. You have these other elements, you have there's like ice abilities while you're managing items, and there is also an attempt to enhance the physical capabilities of organisms without losing their mental faculties. That's like what Resident Evil a lot of times is about. That's like what the difference between a tyrant and a zombie is. There's these layers, there's finding a perfect vessel. And so there's transformative ways of doing that. And then there are other entries that are just like, this is like, it couldn't be more inspired by Resident Evil. I'm just watching like a reskin of what I know. And I think it's a little bit over honoring and it's like not introducing enough in terms of novelty. So that's like the other extreme. So like that fine balance, like that creative balance that people will still enjoy, but will also they'll have to entertain new ideas and think about it in a different way while still watching what they know is what they love. That's like really hard. That's why creating stories and creating games and movies is so difficult. Is because you got to be like the adage that they have in the screenwriting books is like, give me something similar but different. So it's like, I know what it is, but it's like, wow, I never thought about it this way before. And that's like the fine line between like exactly what we know and hey, here's a cool creative reinvention of it.
It's going to largely depend. Like let's put this in practice. Let's look at Zach Kreger. He's making a brand new Resident Evil film. It sounds like it's going to be an original story. So it's not going to be like the Mansion incident, RPD, whatever. It's going to be an original story. So really, if I ever had the opportunity to sit down and talk to Zach, it'd be, so what actually does Resident Evil mean to you? Because for us, like we have this picture in our head that Resident Evil is a predefined set of instructions which make it Resident Evil. Isolated location, bioweapons or zombies, scary horror thematic vibes, corruption, etc. So actually, what does Resident Evil mean Because if it's an original story, how do we know that it's going to follow the principles on what Resident Evil is?
You'll
Well,
never get that
also,
answer.
that's a good question, but also not everyone registers that um formula or version of Resident Evil the same way. Like for me, a lot of the identity of Resident Evil falls into the statement of trying to transcend the limitations of humankind. And that could be escaping death, that could be living forever, it could be transferring consciousness into another body, it could be storing consciousness and then putting into a new body, like Mother Miranda and James Marcus and Alex Wesker. It could be trying to cleanse the slate of humanity because you believe it's degenerate and corrupt and we need to create a better race. So it's always some quest to transcend what is otherwise impossible through biological means. That's like kind of how I see it. And if you think that humanity needs to be written, then you fall into one group of like Nicholas Griffith, Wesker, Dylan Blake, like those kind of villains are one. And then another one is like always trying to say like, I don't want to die. I don't want to see people that I love die. I'm going to find a way around death. And that's like Mother Miranda, James Marcus, Alex Wesker, Spencer. So it's like predominantly you see those themes. And then you see the byproducts of those themes, which I think are kind of not misconstrued as what Resident Evil is, because that is like part of the Resident Evil identity is like we see the bioweapons, we see the zombies, we see all those things. But it's like those all exist because someone had a lot of failed experiments trying to get what they actually wanted. That's why they're there. And it's like James Marcus with RE0, you have a bunch of giant animals because he had to stumble along the way before he found his leeches and actually synthesize the virus he was trying to create. So it's like a lot of what you see in terms of identity is actually a byproduct.
It's like that meme that I always see online. It's like that page what looks like it's taken from Resident Evil, and it's like we mounted a monkey, we cut a monkey's arms off and put AK-47s on, and it's like it escaped.
Yeah. It's out there. Well, it's funny to see everybody's different. Like, again, it's everyone has kind of their own definition, I guess, of what Resident Evil is. And one thing I was thinking about while you guys were just talking now was like when we went back, it was like when Keeper's Diary was done, and remember we were in the camper, we turned on Resident Evil, like Paul Anderson's first Resident Evil, 2002. We turned it on.
Tuned out.
I don't even know. There's a couple people sleeping. It's all right, but I remember putting it
watching
in.
It on Tubby. I remember.
Yeah, and I just remember we were just watching. We're like, this is, is it the worst thing we've ever seen? No, but it was just funny watching it after what we just got in the can, basically, and we were just like, there's some aspects where like, okay, this is good, but it just wasn't, they were just trying to go for a lot more of just pushing the Alice thing, pushing the new characters. And I think with Zach Kreger, whether or not, these new characters are what we would want to see in a Resident Evil, mainline or whatever the case may be, where it's like, it's a new character. It's just so hard because I think sometimes the attachment to the characters that we know, it's people, and it's clearly from the RE9 reaction of who we're playing as, some people just would prefer to stick with it and not switch it up. I do appreciate people trying something new, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but that's where you've run into that risk factor of like, it kind of messes with people's definition of what Resident Evil would be. And like what Beggy was saying, it's not necessarily always about like just the characters, right? It's just all these other factors that are in it as well. But yeah, it's crazy to see, like, again, 30 years long now of all these different interpretations, all these different things that they've either decided to ignore or continue to ignore or restart, reboot, remake. It's fascinating because we're always going to have these discussions of like what we think's better, what we think they could have done better, so yeah, I'm very curious to see like how Hollywood's going to approach this next live action thing in September. We'll see. But, I think the biggest thing that people really got from Keeper's Diary was the fact that like, that's what we want. Like people watch that and they're like, that's what we fucking wanted since 2002. Like, what are we talking about here? So I think that's the biggest thing. It's like some people might like some of the Alice films, some people might not, but even people that did like those Paul Anderson films, like they saw what we did and they still were just like, holy shit, like this is what it's like when it's like in the mansion, or it is about the Keeper, or it is showcasing Jill. I just think that like little things that were able to like somehow be avoided all these years. When somebody finally gets it kind of like more straight in a line, it's just there's that appreciation factor, I think, that comes from it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, what I loved about the Keeper's Diary, I mean, I was sold from the initial pitch anyway, and the initial animatic, but just the way the story is told is so beautiful because it seamlessly weaves in and out of Resident Evil. It's not actually, none of these places existed really in Resident Evil, like the first Resident Evil game. So to have Jill, like, she's just walking around the mansion being all scared and shit, and she picks this file up. As much as we were playing in the sandbox, a lot of these locations, like the doctor's office, didn't exist. The kennels actually, ironically, does not exist in Resident Evil, which is hilarious when you look back at it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
The obviously the poke room kind of exists. The lab with the hunter, I don't think, or the gorilla without any skin, however you want to interpret that, that's not in Resident Evil either. So
Right.
played a lot in the sandbox, but as Andrew said, and it's always stuck with me, is this is Resurrection is now our opportunity to say, this is what we did with Keeper's Diary. We played inside the sandbox to what's possible with Resident Evil, but now this is us taking this to another level. We're playing outside the sandbox now
With a
and
refreshing
creating
story.
a compelling story inside
Yeah.
the Resident Evil space.
It's like inside and outside, kind of like
To a
one
degree,
foot
yeah.
in, one foot out. And
Yeah,
it's
that's-
taking elements that we've seen in various games, giving them new context. There's a lot to be said about what could fall into someone's list of like a Resident Evil formula. Because, for example, and not to say this is like foreshadowing anything or not for Resurrection, but how many entries in Resident Evil do you see animal gigantism? Just like
Yeah.
you see it with the Plaga, and that's not even a virus. You see it in 7 and 8. Those are mold. It's almost like there is something
Even
in the
like
DNA that's
spiders,
trying to
like
make
spider,
Snakes. Yeah.
that's a T virus though. But what I'm saying is that it's almost regardless of what bioweapon there is animal gigantism, and there are sometimes human gigantism. And so all of these giants and these big things, and they're almost like mythically upscaled. There is a lot of play with that in Resurrection, and there is a lot of approaching what can be kind of interpreted from a scientific or biological angle, from a folkloric or belief standpoint, and kind of bridging the gap between those two things. Kind of like how we saw in Resident Evil 4 Remake, where a lot of the ancestors of the residents of Valdelobos in the village actually believed Las Plagas to be demonic and to be demons and to be sealed underneath the castle so that no one could be threatened by them ever again, because they are demonic beings. Even though they have a scientific and biological basis, there is something else that is believed for people who don't have the scientific words yet, right? So before something is abstracted to that level, how does another culture see this thing? Do they embrace it? Are they afraid? And because it exists in Resident Evil, it probably has aspects of creating size or behavior that isn't possible without really specific mutations and biological sort of play. So I think that is something that is also like kind of like on the list. No matter what's going on, there is a giant something in play, and it's giant because there was someone who wanted to test something and maybe messed up, or maybe it exists in nature like Las Plagas. So I think that's another thing that I found really fascinating. And then another thing was, this is also like, I love how Resurrection plays with this concept, but it's like imitation and falsity. It's for something to be an imitation of something else, something to be a false version of something else. There's a key, and then there's an imitation of a key. And there's a shotgun. There's a broken shotgun that could be used as a placeholder to get what you really want. There's all this like
flaccid shotgun.
yeah, there's a blasted shotgun. There's all of these like placeholders for the real thing that like purport to be the real thing. And it's like even like Wesker is like, he's purporting to be your police captain. He's like, not really, but he's acting like one, you know? So I think a lot of play with that kind of stuff has a lot of narrative potential. And that's also a lot of what we want to play with Resurrection.
Yeah.
That's also something else quickly I want to cover. Welcome to Raccoon City specifically is what do you do when you adapt something, especially when you adapt something that people have already played before? We already know Wesker's a bad guy. We already know what happens with Wesker at the end. We already know what the key turning points of the story are. So this is why it is quite nice to do an original story. It's because you don't have to walk a path that's already been walked.
Right. And
And
we're
that's
not
what
gonna
they tried to do with Welcome to Raccoon City. They tried to tell this really weird a story that isn't Wesker. Is this all worth fighting for? Arc, which is totally cliche. It just doesn't work because Wesker fundamentally is a piece of shit. And there is no ounce of good in this man. Some people are born evil, like Jeffrey Dahmer, Fred and Rose West, and fucking Albert Wesker. So let's not pretend for a moment that this man has second thoughts about is it worth fighting for? Because to him, in like Doctor Strange, in every single outcome, this man is evil.
He's turned over a new leaf.
Yeah.
This man isn't born again or anything like that. There's no potential of that happening.
Yeah, and Welcome to Raccoon City was just a lot of just them trying to just throw shit in from 2 and 1 and try to make it into one movie when you're trying to take it from 2 games. I just think, and especially like we're not gonna, because again, literally at the end of Welcome to Raccoon City, Wesker is naked with sunglasses. So we're not gonna make Wesker naked.
Yeah.
With sunglasses, that's the biggest thing. Is that I would have blocked it out too. But if there's one thing we're not going to do is we're not going to make Wesker naked. So I just want to let people know and give people comfort that that's not going to happen.
Oh man, I told Eric that he had to.
We've got to write that out of his contract then, because we've got nudity scenes written into his contract.
Yeah. Let me call up Eric right now and be like, "Sorry, bro.
Sorry, man.
For you."
Yeah. Yeah. No post credit scene. That's again. It's just I think that's why people, seeing some of the live action attempts and kind of what they failed to do and how that direction always seems to be kind of lost in just representing, I think, the characters properly. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's just like when it's coming from fans and they know that like, all right, this character wouldn't act like this. I'm sure Beggy, you were writing the script of like, I'm writing these how I know these characters, right? So like nobody's going to watch Resurrection and be like, well, why the fuck did this character do that? It's like, no, it literally makes sense. Like how they react and how, again, their age plays a part in everything they've seen, all the shit they've seen, they've been through and where they are now. And so I think, I just think it's a great thing to have a continuation of what we know and love from our characters in the franchise and not just like, well, let's just make this character do this like wacky thing because some weird studio person suggested it, and so it worked its way into the script, So like that's like to what we were saying earlier. Like that's why I think the hands off from the studios plays in our favor to just bring this vision to life.
That honestly, that aspect of it just makes me and I'm sure Andrew and like a lot of other folks in the team just feel extremely lucky and thankful because it's like we get to, even with me making any of the compromises I made before, any of the cuts, any of the stuff that can't make it into the final product, it's still very much like preserved everything that I wanted for this story. Even in the screenplay form, even with what was cut, even taking out like the huge vision, it's like we're trying to make it something else, but we have the resources to. We have the resources to preserve what's here, and we could really do it in full. And there are new ways to think of these characters. There are some really clear-cut lines, and then there are some gray lines, and there's some ambiguity, and you're going to have to think about how Chris is changing, what Jill is going through. You're going to have to think about, where does Chris stand now? If he wants to fight against bioterror, but he doesn't want to give any more benefit of the doubt to his own organization, and he's gone rogue, what is he? Is he bad? Is he good? Like, what is he? Where does he stand? And like, how are the folks that were on his own side and aligned with his own efforts going to think of him? And how is he going to think of them? And can he do it alone? It's just like all of these questions sort of arise naturally out of the scenario that we got at the end of Village, just being inspired by that and going someplace really specific with it and creating a world and a new environment that actually reasonably ties them together. Like, if Eric's character died in Africa, how are they in Mexico? Like, what's going on there? And it's like, how would he know to go there? Like, what's there for him? What does he want? So all of those kind of questions and having those converge and like this big like confrontation, that's like it's just been really satisfying to be able to play with, and especially to play with without like some kind of you know, guardrails or being told to do different really, and just kind of having the discussion between like myself and Andrew and occasionally someone else, you know. So
Yeah.
But this
I
this
wonder
is
something.
also.
Mhm.
What's up, Charlie?
I'll be right back. 1 second.
Oh, Charlie.
I wonder, like, you know, we're making these projects pretty much specifically for fans, Resident Evil fans. How do you think it would hold up? Like if we screened The Keeper's Diary and Resurrection in a double feature, just people who knew nothing about Resident Evil, never seen it, never heard about it, would it kind of be hard for them to like understand it, enjoy it?
I think so, because of the unique nature of our productions, there is almost a prerequisite. You have to be a Resident Evil fan, basically. That's another reason why Welcome to Raccoon City and other big Resident Evil productions is not only have they got to make Resident Evil appeal to a casual audience, they've now got to introduce these characters to an audience that do not know this character.
True.
So,
Yeah.
and they've got to tell a compelling story while also giving the backstory. Like, we're very fortunate that the people we're catering to is the fucking perfect target audience who know exactly what. They're kind of like smart fans, really. They kind of know what they want to see, but they don't know how to see it, if that makes sense. It's quite hard for me to explain, but this is this was going to kind of mold into my point, which this is a beautiful thing about crowdfunding, is that we have a very unique opportunity where we have been, so far as is reasonable, we've been given a reasonable sum of money to deliver our own vision with zero asterisks. With obviously we have to deliver perks and everything like that. Totally get that, but there is nobody. None of our backers are saying to us, "I am backing on the prerequisite that you are going to change it to how I want to see it." The way the crowdfund is set up is you guys are buying into our vision that you haven't seen yet. And I think that's really fucking beautiful, to be honest.
Trust. That's a lot of trust because like I don't really have credentials as a writer. You know, I've just done experimental short stories. I've done essays. But that's about it. I haven't written, like, I was in the middle of actually writing my first like book when Andrew contacted me to write Resurrection. That's probably what I would be working on if I weren't working on Resurrection. And it's like I'm not really, you know, established that way. I'm just known as someone who spends a lot of time looking at the lore, studying the books, that kind of thing. But I don't have credentials. That's a completely different skill set. For someone to know all of this information and to have like pretty deep contact with it through all the games and the media is different from someone being able to devise like a unique and effective story. They really are different. And I wouldn't purport that one skill set translates immediately to the next one, you know? So for people to also believe that I can construct a really complete, effective story, that's like another level of trust, you know? Not everyone that's a lore hound is going to be able to write an original scenario of this size super well. So like a lot of people have, you know, put their trust in me pretty much giving me like my first big shot at making something of this size and creating a production out of it, you know, to have it exist beyond the page. So that's like a lot. So thank you guys for that.
On top of that as well, like, think about, just because you do something a lot doesn't necessarily mean you're an expert in that field.
Right.
Like, for example, I drive my car every day to work. Doesn't mean I'm going to be entering NASCAR next week. You know, I'm on my computer all the time doesn't mean I'm a computer expert. Just because we love Resident Evil does not make us effective storytellers
100%.
and think we can do things better. So
that needs to
we will.
storytelling needs to be studied in its own sake for this, right? So it's like all of the things that you would learn to be an effective storyteller, I had to, like, especially in Screen, because Screen is new to me. I had to essentially learn the first time. I had to like go to specific books, read about, understand the 3-act structure, actually put together different resources and materials, diagrams sometimes to help like kind of where is this going? Why does this character's story need to be told? And how are they going to be any different at all at the end from the beginning? You know, like you have to think about all of those things. You can't just have a knowledge of what you like and then try to put it on film. Like something new has to be generated from your creative process that gets people to think about these characters in a new way. And otherwise, like, you know, I just don't think that that's really like a story. Maybe it's a situation, and maybe you're putting characters in tough situations, but they aren't really experiencing a reversal. They aren't really going someplace where they haven't been. So, and we definitely want to take people places they haven't been with these characters.
Yeah. So I personally never had any doubts with you. I from the get-go wanted you to write this. And in terms of how people may or may not perceive it, obviously we're not trying to create a Spider-Man Lotus scenario. But
Can you explain what that
we
is for people who don't know what that is?
it's if you like it, great, but for the most part, it's a pretty disastrous fan film that a lot of people were hyped up for, and a lot of people did not like the way it turned out, and the director got caught saying like racist stuff and this and that. It was just a disaster. So that's something we don't want to do, obviously. But we the other day on JJ Stream, I was talking about how there seems to be and we've kind of touched on it here. There seems to be this generational divide between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and now 9. You have these fans, you have these fans, you have these fans. I think with what we've created, we've tried to honor and embody what we know from each thing. So I think when people watch this, no matter what game you're a fan of, I think you'll be able to find any piece of Resident Evil you may or may not like in this story, blended in such a way that we're hoping, you know, for the most part, people will enjoy it. And I understand that, you know, there's people that are just not going to like it regardless, but we're hoping that we've done it in this way to, you know, hopefully people will be on board no matter what era of fan you're from. So,
or even if you're not a fan at all, right? Like back to what Charlie was asking, like if it's like something that you could just put in front of an audience that like, I don't really know what Resident Evil is. And it's like,
too.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really
I don't
good
even
question.
think you need, I mean, it's like, it's horror, it's action, it's drama. You don't, I mean, with the Keeper's Diary, I've had so many people tell me like, I don't even know a thing about Resident Evil, but it just looks cool. Like from the setup with the forest going at the push into the mansion, then you have this person with a shotgun in the hallway. Like, I don't even know what it is, but it's like something about it just captivates you. So
I think
think
also
that's what we have here too.
with this story, there is this concept in a lot of storytelling and especially in screenwriting called like wish fulfillment. And there is a character in this series. He's an original character that you will see that essentially serves like the wish fulfillment journey of a fan or a new to Resident Evil viewer watching. Like, hey, there are seasoned, hardened veterans in this story. There are people that are matured, and then there are people that are new. There are people that are rookies. There are people that are trying to cut their teeth during a really disastrous night during a biohazard crisis, one in particular. And if you were caught in that position, you know, going through this journey with the folks that are involved, that would be one hell of a ride. And the way that the place that you end up in is like immensely rewarding. So that's something to keep in mind too, is that there is a character, he's like younger, he is plays a specifically strong part in Chris's part of the story, and you know, like the interactions between them can be seen as the younger character being like the wish fulfillment for someone that is like, if I were in this sequence and if it was my not first night in the job, but if I was new and if I was younger and if I dealt with that extreme adversity, if this played out for me in this way, I would absolutely love that. Like I would just pour my heart all over it.
It's like that stupid old man mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of a father-son kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's
a
good.
lot of themes of those, a lot of symbols, a lot of like very Resident Evil-esque. I feel like this is another thing for like the bingo card or like the Resident Evil formula list is kind of symbols and metaphors of the story through paintings and through like kind of old school romantic or Renaissance style paintings. I think that is like really big in Resident Evil. That's huge in Code Veronica with its art and the relationship between Alexia and Alfred and Alexander. That's really big in Resurrection. That's really big in a lot of Resident Evil stories, but in a lot of the other entries, it's much more kind of just a thing in the background. Here, though, it's something that I wanted like people to really think about. Like if we present them with some imagery or symbols, I want them to. It's unmistakable, like how to poetically disguise and undisguise what is shown in the paintings from the biology of what's going on. So I think that is also on the sort of formula list or bingo card for Resident Evil in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I again, it's, there's just so much that I think, having that experience that we had, back with Keeper's Diary, and one thing I was going to kind of go around and ask you guys is, just kind of like initially, like the one core thing that you learned while in the production of Keeper's Diary. I know we've kind of talked about it maybe off camera or just in private, but like, starting with Andrew, like what was like the one core thing that you took from that project as far as just like a part of that learning experience? Because I think for all of us it was in that way. But if you could think of anything.
The more money and the more people, the better. No, it's I don't know. I feel like I learned a lot. With Keeper's Diary, I felt like I was not so much directing, but just trying to keep the production moving. So, I think I understand that you need to aim big with little to no resources, but I also think that you need to be fairly realistic in what kind of resources are needed. And I know like a lot of movies that we love were made with shoestring budgets and directors were forced to make these certain decisions, but at the same time, if you have I'm not saying if you have an outrageous, like these stupid $300 million budgets for movies that are never going to make a return, but if you have like at least this amount of money we're working with here in today's economy, I think you can make something pretty enjoyable for people. So if you're reasonable with your budget, you'll be able to have the money and the resources and the people that you'll need to make something happen without this happening or without that happening. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm sure there's a bunch of things, but that's just what comes to mind right now.
Okay. What about you, Andy?
Definitely in the budgeting department. Like, I'm a lot more relaxed than I was when I budgeted Keeper's Diary. I just think there's a lot. It's such a complex project.
Yeah.
Obviously, using other people's equity, delivering on those perks as well. But I just don't. I'm not worried this time. I think we've played things so much. It makes it sound like we were complete dumbasses on Keeper's Diary, which is obviously not the case. Like we had a reasonable amount of intellect, but as you can appreciate, it was the first time we all worked with each other. A lot of the situations that happened were happening for the very first time, and it was how we navigated that and how we got the solution. It was constant problem solving on Keeper's Diary, and I think that ultimately makes you a better filmmaker, makes you a better producer, and we have genuinely play things so much smarter on this one, and we've got the right people in the right places, and
Yeah.
even though it's 4 times the size, I don't feel it's 4 times the pressure.
No,
Okay.
it's still going to be a matter of problem solving no matter what.
Yes.
But I just
Like any
think
other
that
production, yeah.
I mean, Beggy and I spent so much time planning for this, planning for that. What if this happens? What if that happens? You can't do this. You can't do that. I don't feel like it was that intense with Keeper's Diary, so I'm
Yeah.
fully expecting shit to happen here and there and to figure out stuff on the fly, but I just think we've done a really good job preparing for a lot of things. So
Nice. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
good. And just delegating where you need to, right? Like making sure that things get, to the right people so that that pressure is less. There will be some, obviously, like you said, things that might happen that are like, all right, well, we didn't plan for that, but then you just kind of put your brains together in that moment and just kind of, make it work.
Yeah.
And well, how about you, Charlie, as far as, something you learn, a key takeaway from Keeper's Diary?
Yeah, I guess the Keeper's Diary, it was just this feeling of everything was so close knit, like everyone was so connected. And people just like whatever they had to do, they did, and we kind of pushed our bodies to the limit. And and it brought us closer together.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it'll work the same way now that everything is 4 times bigger. I hope it does, because when there's even just one, piece of the puzzle that's not playing well with others, it can really just cause havoc. So maybe that's what it taught me. It's just like everyone has a part to play, and sometimes you're asked to do something else, and everyone has to be like willing to step up and do that part too when necessary in this kind of environment. And that's what really, I think, led to our success. So I just hope that all the people that we've brought in are going to be just like that, because even just one of them being off could really throw things off.
Very well said. Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I think that's what brought us definitely closer together. And even though this will be an obvious bigger production with a bigger budget, I think trying to maintain that sense of like, okay, we just got to all do our part, but more if it needs to, or obviously we have more stuff kind of set aside now where if we need to again delegate to something else or somebody else rather. But I think overall, I think one of my biggest things too was just like learning that of just like, wow, when it's that small of a production and that small of a crew, you really do need to lean on each other for that help, especially when you have moments of like, man, I don't know if I can stay awake for another 8 hours after driving 6 hours to do an overnight shoot for the last night, things like that. And your body is just like toast at that point, because you're just like, oh my God, I don't even know what day it is anymore. But yeah, I think those moments is what definitely ultimately brought us together. So yeah, I think that was one of the biggest learning things for me as well. How about you, Beggy? I know you know how to make, you're in there making the other part of the set and all that stuff, and you were, kind of just like learning as you went. Shout out to Rob as well. He was
Bobby.
he was giving you them lessons. So but overall, what was your takeaway from the Keeper's Diary?
It's just like always good to have like extra resources, people to assist, and played really like just kind of a fill-in role of like whatever is kind of like needed. And I feel like if we could have someone like me like that for Resurrection, or like a few people, it'd be a huge help. And so just things like catering and transportation and coordinating the travel, because there are going to be a lot more extras coming in for Resurrection, and largely going to be staying at like one place, so that's like not too complex, but it's just in terms of schedules, in terms of all the different roles that we have working together, from makeup to VFX, like all that kind of stuff. Just I think what Charlie was saying with just like keeping the chemistry really good, and lending each other strength when needed, because it's just like it's like really just demanding to be on a film set for many days. And thankfully there are like some moments that we could take rest. There's like one rest day built into our resurrection suit that's just like completely like everyone's just resting the whole day. After
That's not gonna
yeah.
happen.
Yeah. So you think.
But yeah, it's just, and it's also, that's another thing. It's like, can you plan things that give people a little bit of time to rest, and maybe not have all of the cast so busy all of the time, or all of the crew on something. Maybe have some days where some folks are shooting one scene, but then they get to chill for a bit and just kind of kick back and hang out on set, rather than constantly being on the set on film. That, and like, just kind of like rotating people in and out in a way that actually is conducive to a longer shoot, and them conserving their energy, and just being more happy in general. That's like, I feel like that's going to be like a big takeaway, because and the Keeper's Diary, yeah, it was a lot of kind of when people needed to eat more or rest, or do something. It was just kind of um like, what are the strategies to like crank something out if we need to like really get a shot, and then what are the strategies to maybe like give them some space after, and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, for these shoots, and for coordination, it's just like, it's really a lot about being resourceful, and knowing what the time blocks are generally going to be like, and what might take longer, and what might cause an issue, or and whatnot. So
Yeah, no, that's it. I liked hearing that from all of you, because it's, again, we were there. It's really like we're gonna be a really close family by the end of this stuff. It feels like, because it's really like you're just in those walls together doing that. Like, I felt like we were in the keeper's room for fucking ever, doing that. So we walked out, we're like, wow, like this is, we broke out and did the other scenes. I was like, wow, this is, now it's like it's going to be even longer. So it's like, you're going to form that bond, and hopefully just, become closer because of it. And I think, keeping that chemistry, keeping the laughs going as well. Like, we had a lot of just funny, like, jokes that would just come from just like either being sleep deprived, or just like, like, well, yeah, bud, just stuff like that. Just little things that are always I'm never gonna forget, just because of just like how we had to bounce off of each other and keep each other going and keep the spirits up.
Is Callie coming again?
I'm not
To do the
sure.
BTS?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'll have to just talk to Andrew about that. But yeah, as of now, I'm not too sure. But yeah, I would love for her to come out. But yeah, I mean, I think being able to head out to, Utah, I've never been, so I think this will be another just great opportunity for me to learn, and also to be an assistant director. It's a great opportunity for me to learn even further, and just to work directly under Andrew to make sure that the vision stays the vision, basically. And same thing with, like, obviously the script that Beggy wrote, to make sure that is all, like, all three of us in that regard are like on that page. Obviously everyone else has to be as well, so they can see kind of how they want it to be, presented in that way. But yeah, I'm very thankful and grateful for everything at this point that we've all been able to accomplish, and these opportunities, and yeah, I can't wait to see what we can pull off in Utah for 2 weeks. It's going to be a crazy, and again, it's like, I know it's going to go by so quickly, and it's going to be like another thing where just someone's on the fast forward button the whole time. It just feels like it's going faster, and time doesn't exist when you're in those small little sets, or big sets, or big locations now, because we are kind of branching out with this. We do have more locations and a lot of cool stuff that you guys have lined up where we will actually be shooting. But yeah, so I'm just very grateful, very blessed that we have this moment in time to create something, and just create more memories, and make people happy, and know that their money is in good hands, that we're going to create a product that is as fulfilling as they want it to be, coinciding with 30 years of Resident Evil and all these, crazy milestones that we're hitting. And actually, so real quick, Charlie, you were actually in Japan recently, and you actually went to the location where the opening cutscene for Resident Evil was shot. So that's pretty cool, man. Did you not know where exactly that was, or did you have a friend show you the coordinates? Like, I just wanted to ask you that as well.
Yeah, I remembered that it was near the Tama River, but I wasn't sure of the exact location. And while I was there, I was hanging out with this guy Dio, who was a friend of a friend, and I think he actually did a little bit of like translation work on George Romero's Resident Evil. I think he was like involved in that, and he's been in that that fandom, that community for a long, long time, and knows a lot of Capcom people, and can get them on the phone and stuff. And he did his darndest to talk to everybody he could at Capcom to try and find the exact location, and it's not recorded anywhere that they could find. But he talked to several people, and I guess it's just one of those things. It's like a lost piece of information just because it's so long ago. But through talking with the people that he did, they kind of deduced approximately where it might be. And when we went there, it did. I mean, the river looks like a river in a lot of different sections, very similar to each other, obviously.
Yeah.
But the location made a lot of sense because it was near a train station and it was on the Tama River. And I'm pretty sure we were probably walking around, and we were walking around in the pouring rain, which was not too pleasant. But and I cheated on my quitting smoking while I did that, because I was just soaking wet, and it's he's smoking a cigarette. I'm like, God, that just looks really good right now. So I had a cigarette. So I wasn't able to determine the exact location, but I'm pretty sure that we came within probably a 1 mile radius of it. And obviously,
that's cool.
It probably looks totally different today. Was the challenge. So when we filmed it, there was an abandoned warehouse kind of building, and this metal fence that was on a slope facing down towards the river. And just kind of eyeballing, I kind of thought I saw the spot that it could have been, but there was nothing there anymore. But I think maybe in that time, Tokyo might have bought back that land, because now that all the both sides, both banks of the river are just gorgeous, and they've made it into more of a public space, and they have spaces you can do barbecues, and it's just a really popular place to go now.
That's cool. No, that's very cool. Yeah, I saw that when I was seeing it on social media. I'm like, that is really cool, because like you said, nobody's really pinpointing the exact location. So it's just cool that you got the whereabouts of basically where it was. That's really cool. Because yeah, I mean, there's not really much besides the live action cutscenes in the first game, there's not really another live action location of where something like that was shot. Everything else was CGI cutscenes after that. So that's still really cool. Piece of art.
Yeah, that was
right
probably there. After where's Inez, probably the most common question I would get. Where did you go?
Okay. Yeah.
So I tried to spotlight it.
No, that's very cool. And last question for you, Charlie, is if this is from my friend Brandon. He wanted to know, and he was just wondering. He's like, if we ever actually get a chance to maybe post Resurrection, if we could do some kind of get other actors involved too that are in RE, but that would be cool if we can sort some kind of meetup. Obviously I know that we can do hangouts and stuff like that, but that would be cool if we can kind of, especially in celebration of what we've achieved, I think it would be really cool if we can all sort something like that out. Would you be down to do something kind of I know there's conventions, but maybe some kind of fan meetup in the States or something like that, or we could get barbecues going. We could do something I think that would be fantastic.
it's just always a question of where, like,
Yeah, and timing
where's the
yeah.
most sensible place to do it. Where
Well,
the most amount of people can get there, I guess.
Yeah.
if we hit this theater stretch goal, that might be, Saturday is the movie theater, Sunday is a meetup at like a banquet hall that we rent out or
Right.
something.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
knows?
That's kind of what I was thinking of, like maybe we could coincide it with a screening or something. I just think it would be really cool to kind of like
screening makes sense.
yeah,
Absolutely
yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would be I think that would be just a great way to kind of like just take it all in and have that celebration. But no, that's really cool. That's a good thing to think about. But yeah, guys, seriously, like thank you all for taking the time for this podcast today. It's just great that now we know we got everything funded, and now it's time for all of us to get to work. And oh wait, what do you got there?
I don't think you can quite see it because my brightness is way too bright. Let me turn this
Is
down.
it the goal?
Yeah, sorry,
it's
I
still
don't
too
see it.
bright. Yeah.
Fucking hell, hang on, give me a second. It's hang on.
207?
207 we're at now. I don't even see that.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we're nearly already at our first stretch goal. And we're not the deadline hasn't even finished. So again, true beauty of this project, we can now fund past the initial $200,000 and past the deadline. So
yeah,
that's incredible.
Still pick up those Blu-rays.
Yeah, when you guys see this podcast, though, literally, I'm putting this out tomorrow. You'll still have like pretty much about 24 hours to donate. So anything, if you guys have missed out on some stuff or you're curious about it, you still have time as of this recording. Not too much time after this recording, but enough time to where if you guys haven't gotten your hands on a Blu-ray or anything like that, definitely claim those perks because time is running out. But thankfully, we got everything funded, and like you guys said, it's just stretch goals at this point, and anyone else that wants to help us make this dream a reality. So that's it's a beautiful thing. So we'll go around.
I thought,
oh, go ahead.
Can't they keep donating like for an extended period of time? Yeah, it's not like just 24 hours. Yeah, so it's going to be until we, like turn the faucet off, because it's like we need to spend all the money, and it's like if people just keep donating and we don't have plans for that money, then we could be in trouble, like shooting ourselves in the foot. So
but
I think it's
how else am I going to get to the Maldives, Charlie?
Right.
Yeah, you are right. We will, so far as is reasonable, we'll turn the faucet off when we need to. We just want to make sure we cover all the bases if there's some unknowns.
Well, that's good to know for people, for people watching and listening. So yeah, there you go. Thank you for clearing that up. So yeah, so
but still, do it tomorrow.
But yeah, do it tomorrow. Yeah, do it when you're watching. Right after you've done this episode, go ahead. The link will be down below. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. And so yeah, we'll start with Andrew. Where can people find you? Your socials, all that good stuff.
Nowhere. I live in a cave underneath the earth.
That's probably how it felt like the last 2 years. Just been fucking chugging away.
Well, my socials, just my name, Andrew Saullo, on Instagram, on X. I'm not a social media guy, so you're better off just following either the Row or a Biohazard Story socials.
There you go. And Andy, what about yourself?
Biohazard Classified on all socials. You'll see me posting there. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I'm posting a lot of videos on the Residents of Evil now, which I'm very grateful for.
Awesome. And what about you, Charlie?
So it's just my name mostly. I think it's like Charlie Kraslavsky on Facebook, Charlie Kraslavsky with no space on Instagram, C Kraslavsky on Twitter. I think I'm on like TikTok, but I almost never post there. Probably the same thing, Charlie Kraslavsky. You see a common theme here.
I thought he was going to throw a curveball at us.
Yeah.
Right. Did I miss one? No, I think that's all of them.
OGCK, Charlie.
OGCK, right?
OGCK, my shop. So I haven't really been pushing that the last 2 months because I didn't want to, have people buy stuff from my shop when they could be donating to Resurrection. But yeah, my shop just opened last November. So it's still, there's not that many items on it, but I'm going to slowly grow it. And we have a lot of really cool stuff. And if you want to check it out, it's www.ogck.shop.
Perfect. Love it. And what about you, Beggy?
Yeah, most of what you'll see from me, you'll just catch through like Row socials and a Biohazard Story socials, like in the near future. And then I have like Beggy Beg Beg on Twitter or on X if you want to follow that. I don't like make a whole lot of consistent updates. So I'm mostly like doing stuff for this project, but at some point I might do more. We'll see.
Yeah, when the
Okay.
project's not consuming your life and things.
Yeah,
Are...
it really has been. Like
Yeah,
there's nothing else I've been able
yeah.
to think about for so long. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. Seriously, thank you guys again for coming on and shooting the shit. I love this, especially post Keepers right into Resurrection. So I think this is a good little in between. We'll definitely have to do this again when everything's done, so we can reminisce and tell some stories about what happens in Utah. So yeah. So thank you everyone for watching, listening at home on all these. You can always find the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Libsyn, and of course on YouTube, the video version. So that's it, guys, and we will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.